After Charge's the enemy's death, Eli finally married Prairie Flower. That scalp was dried in the wind and hung in Eli's fort for nearly a century. Without buffalo as food, the tribe had no choice but to raid white settlers for survival. Looking at what lay before him, Eli recalled the first time the Comanche came to his family. But now, the executioner was him. The Comanches silently approached a small white cabin. They were simply starving. If the people inside cooperated, they would only steal supplies, but the family responded with gunfire. The woman inside thought just like Eli's mother had, but it was too late. Eli led the charge into the cabin. He slaughtered every living thing inside, just as the Comanche had once done to his family. They ransacked everything they could use. Eli stared at the little house. With no game to hunt, the native people had become bandits, but they didn't realize while they were killing and looting, someone else was doing the same to their own village. Eli had taken most of the warriors away. In their absence, the Apache struck, burning every tent and stealing all the livestock. Seeing the scalped bodies of his people, Eli cried out Prairie Flower's name. Thankfully, she had hidden in the woods and escaped. Later, Eli found Tashaway, badly wounded. The entire camp was cloaked in sorrow. Prairie Flower found Ingrid by the river singing. She was brave. An Apache had discovered her hiding place, and when she fought back, she picked up an axe and killed him. There was no food, no horses. Chief Tashaway was gravely injured. The burden now fell on Eli's shoulders. This kind of fugitive life worried Prairie Flower. She feared Eli couldn't take it. Still, they dreamed of a better future. Prairie Flower told Eli she was pregnant. Amid the chaos, Eli was going to be a father. They began slaughtering horses for food. It was what the Comanche now had to do. Once, they would never have done such a thing, but when one of their own collapsed, the chief made the decision. The old horse had been his battle companion for years. After a ceremonial prayer, Tashaway drew his knife and gave the first bowl of horse blood to the starving man. Though they now had food, no one was happy. They needed to find another Comanche group soon, or they'd starve again. Luckily, Tashaway discovered signs of the dog-eaters. They'd snapped branches to leave markers. Dog-eaters were bound by custom to help them. That was the Comanche way. But Tashaway wasn't happy because the chief of the dog-eaters was his own son. Wasn't that a good thing? Why wasn't Tashaway glad? A few days later, Tashaway made a new discovery. The dog-eaters had watered their horses nearby, not far from their camp now. Tashaway could follow the signs, but as he stood, he tore his wound. To keep the others calm, he told Eli to fetch him a long robe to cover up. 2 days later, they found the dog-eaters. To Tashaway, it was something he never wanted to do. When he first came to this tribe, he killed dozens of horse thieves alone. They'd once called him Fat Wolf. That was a Comanche tradition. Father and son seemed to be on good terms. That night by the fire, Hanlau asked Tashaway who Eli was. One man said, "That's Tashaway's son. He's brave, can kill 10 men alone." Hanlau wasn't pleased after all. He was Tashaway's real son. Clearly, something had happened between them in the past. Ingrid was just a captive to the tribe. Anyone could do whatever they wanted to her. A Comanche man approached her and picked up her bow. He stepped on her and mocked her. She was no different from a horse to him. He had 6 horses, his source of pride. He didn't plan to do anything to her now, so he walked away. But Ingrid had had enough. She picked up the bow and fired an arrow at him. Her aim was poor, it missed, and it enraged him. He walked toward her. She fired again, still missed. He sneered at her. She shot a 3rd arrow, it hit, but he still staggered forward. A 4th arrow brought him down. In a frenzy, Ingrid kicked him over and smashed his head with her bow again and again. That night, shaken, Ingrid told Eli what happened. The man's face was no longer recognizable. Eli knew if this got out, they'd be expelled from the tribe and die in the harsh winter. He buried the body before returning to the tent. Prairie Flower saw blood on his hands and grew concerned. Eli told her it was from a dog-eater Ingrid had killed. Prairie Flower was furious and said she'd tell Hanlau. Eli stopped her, afraid Hanlau would kill Ingrid. Prairie Flower argued, better she dies alone than we all die. But they needn't have worried. Ingrid had her own plan. She snuck into Hanlau's tent. Her beauty was her only asset. Hanlau didn't mind having one more woman in bed. The next day, a squad of soldiers was seen close to the village. They planned to build a fort. It would be fatal to the dog-eaters, who would have to relocate. But Hanlau hated the fort's soldiers. He wanted to strike first. Eli knew they could never kill them all. The soldiers would just keep coming. On the way back, they chatted. Hanlau spoke of how his mother had been unfaithful to Tashaway, and they were banished. Later, he and his mother were captured by soldiers and enslaved. They were abused. Worse, One soldier treated Hanlao like a woman. That explained his hatred. Ingrid hung rabbit meat to dry when Eli approached and asked if she had slept with the chief. She said she just wanted to convince him. Prairie Flower suddenly exploded in anger. She accused Ingrid of being insane and told her to stop pretending to be clever. Ingrid said she was doing it for everyone if she became Hanlao's wife. They'd all be safe. Prairie Flower threatened her, try something like that again, and I'll cut off your nose. Eli said nothing and walked away. If word got out that Ingrid had killed someone, they'd be cast out, hunted by other tribes, or freeze to death. Then the dead man's horse wandered back. Ingrid grew anxious. His wife was emotional. He'd been missing for days. The search team hadn't given up. Ingrid feared the body would be found. Still, she went to Hanlao's tent, trying to act normal, but she couldn't sleep. She woke Hanlao and made up a story. She said she dreamed that the missing man had been killed by fort soldiers. Hanlao already knew Ingrid was involved. Fat Wolf had said dreams sometimes revealed the truth, but the blood on her shoes betrayed her. She had first come to his tent the same day that man disappeared. But Fat Wolf didn't expose what Ingrid had done. He wanted to use it as an excuse to attack the fort. As long as Ingrid stayed in his bed, he wouldn't press the issue. But eventually, wild dogs dug up the man's corpse. Everyone started guessing who might have done it. Tashaway noticed Eli's uneasy expression. No matter what the elders suspected, Hanlao told them it was the soldiers from the fort. Hanlao urged the elders to approve an attack, but Tashaway still opposed it. He had seen too many tribesmen die in countless battles throughout his life. Still, he couldn't convince Hanlao. War was now unavoidable. Warriors painted their faces with war paint and prepared for battle. At that moment, Tashaway pulled Eli aside. Eli couldn't lie. He confessed the truth to Tashaway. A native woman smeared paint across her lover's face. She was joining the fight to drive out the invading whites. It was a war they couldn't win. Still, the warriors set out fully armed. By then, the white soldiers inside the fort were likely asleep. With the chief's command, the warriors charged. But when they stormed into the fort, they found it empty. The enemy had already retreated. Then, Chief Hanlao spotted the whites in the distance, cannons already in position. The Comanche had no way to fight back against artillery, but they had one advantage: on horseback. They were faster than any soldier. As the cannons roared, they abandoned the bodies of fallen comrades and retreated. Prairie Flower carefully checked Eli's body. After confirming he wasn't hurt, she whispered, "Thank you for coming back to me." They had never seen weapons that powerful, so destructive. It was hopeless. They couldn't even summon the courage to fight back. Now they had no choice but to find a new camp. That was the native people's tragedy. Their land was seized by great powers, and not only could they not resist, they had to flee to survive. But now, father and son were at odds. Tashaway said no matter what happened, they were not to fight the fort again. Hanlao shouted, "You don't know what they did to me." Tashaway replied, "I don't care," and turned to leave. Hanlao couldn't take it. He threw Tashaway down, but he was still no match for Tashaway. Hanlao would never forget what happened at the fort. The rift between the two chiefs meant they couldn't migrate together. Ingrid found Eli and told him Hanlao was willing to offer 10 horses to buy her from Prairie Flower. But Prairie Flower refused. Then Ingrid turned to Eli for help. It was clear Eli didn't want her to go either, but for some reason, yet another pair of lovers was forced apart, not knowing if they'd ever meet again. That's life. What you want can sometimes feel so far out of reach. Prairie Flower was fetching water by the river, using a buffalo bladder as a water skin. Then she sensed danger. Turning around, she saw an Apache woman pointing an arrow at her. They were old enemies. The woman said, "Leave now, and I won't hurt you." But Prairie Flower knew better. That was just to keep her still. If she turned her back, she'd be shot. She instinctively shielded her belly. She was 8 months pregnant. Then she pretended to walk away, but quickly drew a knife and threw it. The two women fought, just like men fighting to survive. In the end, Prairie Flower grabbed a fallen bough and struck the woman across the head. She was temporarily subdued. To avoid exposing the camp's location, Prairie Flower drowned her in the water. Just as she caught her breath, she noticed a little girl standing on the riverbank. The girl glared at her, then drew her bow. Prairie Flower raised hers too, but she couldn't bring herself to shoot a child. She slowly lowered her bow, but the girl didn't hesitate. She fired an arrow and fled. Prairie Flower, wincing in pain, broke off the arrowhead and pulled it out from her back. She was a brave woman. The effort drained her strength. Blood loss left her too weak to stand, but she knew if she didn't return to the tribe soon, she'd die. Every step felt like her life was slipping away. Thankfully, she made it back to camp before collapsing. This strong woman finally cried, falling into Eli's arms. She blamed herself for not protecting their child. After treating the wound, Ingrid said Prairie Flower would be okay. but Eli didn't know she was only trying to comfort him. With an injury like that, survival chances in the wild were slim. That night, Prairie Flower woke up. She said she had a dream about their daughter. She always believed it would be a girl. They had already chosen a name. They had dreamed of a beautiful life together. She fell asleep in Eli's arms that night, and never woke up again. Staring at the blood-soaked blanket, Eli pressed down on her wound as if that could bring her back, but nothing could stop her from leaving him forever. Their child was gone too. It was Comanche tradition. They painted the face of the dead with red pigment. The chief bent her legs and folded her into a fetal position just like when she came into the world. Then she was wrapped in a red blanket and tied tight with leather straps. 5 warriors lifted her onto a horse. They were a people of the horse. Only when the burial ritual was complete could she be laid to rest. Eli was the first to place soil on her grave. Another person Eli loved deeply was now gone. Lying in the dry grass, he closed his eyes, as if she had returned to his side. At that moment, Eli made a decision that would change his life. He was tired of the nomadic life. He would build a fortress where his loved ones could live in peace. He would protect them with his own power. Just then, Toshaway interrupted his thoughts.
Found signs of buffalo.
Tired of moving.
More months of hardness ahead. The warrior has to do their part.
So then what? We can keep running from new things that are chasing us?
People always move. You know this.
Do you like that? Never sitting still? Never having a place you can call home?
Every nomina has lost someone they love. Your sadness can't be the end. Get up, you have to look forward. Man's waiting for you.
Soon, Eli got the chance to change everything. They met a cavalry officer. At the time, the U.S. government paid rewards to get white captives back from native tribes. With 3 horses, 2 rifles, and 2 crates of canned beef, the old chief traded Eli and Ingrid to the army. The story returned to present-day. 80-year-old Eli asked his granddaughter, "Do you know why I left the Comanche?"
Know that you had to leave so that you could save them.
Everyone was starving. Smallpox, cholera, other diseases they'd never seen and couldn't even name. There was no way they were going to make it. I traded myself and Ingrid so the band could get supplies and medicines.
You were a hero.
In the story.
He smiled at himself bitterly. His granddaughter seemed to understand something. How much of Eli's story was true? She said nothing after all. It was his 80th birthday, and guests were waiting. That handsome old man was the patriarch of Texas. After 60 years of hard work, he owned half the land in the state. Once a cavalry colonel, he was now a powerful man. But even at 80, he still had enemies like the Garcia family, who owned the other half. They kept each other in check. Times had changed. Ranching was no longer that profitable. To keep the family legacy alive, Eli turned to oil. Today was his big day. The most influential bankers, landowners, and socialites were all attending. He wanted to raise funding for his oil empire. Before dinner, his granddaughter brought him a mint julep and asked him to tell her a story. She loved his stories the most. Staring at the land he'd fought so hard to win, Eli's mind drifted back 60 years. The cavalry hadn't rescued them out of kindness. They were hoping to sell Eli to the army for even more. Life in the military camp was no better. They mocked the Comanche as savages, laughed at Native Americans as fools, even joked about Eli's wife. Eli stood up in rage, ready to fight. Ingrid quickly pulled him back. Reason won, and he sat down, but his anger had already drawn attention. That night, Eli was dragged from his sleep. They burned Prairie Flower's drawing, took her necklace, stripped him naked, and cut off his braid. A warrior without a braid no longer belonged to the Comanche. Eli realized freedom had to be fought for. When the guard fell asleep, he stole a knife and crept into the officer's tent. He only wanted to get Prairie Flower's necklace back, but the officer woke up. His gun jammed. Eli seized the moment and overpowered him.
I'm not your savage to tame, and nobody's gonna take anything from me.
This was how Eli had survived his entire life. Later, he brought Ingrid to Garcia's land in Texas and founded his sprawling ranch. Back to the present, even with only a piece of bread, you still need the strength to swat away the flies.
The era of the cattle baron is over, honey. It's over.
What if there isn't any oil in the ground?
Oh, I'm betting there is.
But what if you're wrong? If there's no oil, do we lose the ranch?
Well, that's always a risk. Anytime you find a decent piece of land, sure as sun up, someone out there's gonna try and take it from you.
Does that scare you?
Not anymore.
I'm a movie enthusiast. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.